The Chaotic Touch of Harmony 2, Bonded by Fire. By Law-Abiding Pony. Poster's note. This is a follow-up to the story, The Chaotic Touch of Harmony. You will find links to the first story in the story's description. Sorry it took me so long to start posting this story. And to let you know, I am going to be posting this story a different way. On the long chapters I am going to be cutting them into smaller videos of about 15 to 20 minutes each. I will be posting the full chapter each day. For the chapters I am cutting into smaller videos. They should be between 3 to 5 videos. On the end screen of the video at the top right will be the next video in that chapter. It looks like I will only be doing this to 7 to 8 chapters. Or if it's the end of the chapter, it will link to the next chapter if it's posted. I was looking at posting 2 versions of this story, one with cutting the videos into parts and 1 chapter per video. That works if all the videos are long enough to cut up. I had asked in the past about my posting like this. I got 1 person that did not like the new format and I think 3 people that liked it more. I would like feedback on what you think about posting this way. And again, I am sorry it took me so long to start posting this story. I should have worked it out, so I posted it as soon as I got done with the other story. I will try and keep that in mind in the future. End poster's note. Interlude. Part 1 of 4. Interlude. A hospital waiting room was typically a place of nervous energy, and today was no different. Trinity's Mercy Hospital was still under construction, but had been done in a way that allowed the lower 2 floors to be fully operational until the structure was complete. This waiting room in particular saw its first set of family members, but it would soon pick up in the weeks and months to come. It was the 10th of January and Loki and Crimson waited for their nieces to come into the world. A Pegasus mare sat behind the nurse's counter and kept a silent vigil over her domain. Crimson was already well underway with her pregnancy and was pacing in front of her green counterpart, who was joyfully toiling away with a brand new computer harness. The new design was lighter and more robust to wear and tear. While Loki sat in a chair designed to be more comfortable for ponies, in that the seat was little more than a raised cushion, Crimson was radiating anxious energy. Eventually the pale yellow mare had had enough waiting and walked over to the nurse. "Are you sure I can't go in there?" "Sorry ma'am, policy dictates only the father can be in the room." "Oh come on. That works with monogamy, but we're a herd. We should all be there." The nurse remained polite, but steadfast. "I realize that ma'am, but we can't make exceptions. More people means the doctor and nurses may not be able to move around if something goes wrong." Anderson remembered her medical studies. Even though her clinical side was greatly assaulted by her emotional half. "Are right. Of course. Simmer down would ye?" Loki called out as a savage grin creased her face as the visor headset concealed most of her large eyes. "You keep that up and you'll mess up my groove." Crimson's face scrunched up in irritation and she marched over to sit next to her herd mate. "You do realize this is a historic occasion, right?" "Ahoy," Loki replied absently. Anderson was having increasing difficulty in laying on her belly, so she opted to rest on her right side so she could face her green gamer. "We could be in there witnessing the birth of the first 2 ponies, who were born as ponies, be brought into the world." "Ahoy! And there are Alpha's children," the pale yellow mare added with emphasis. "Last I checked." Crimson's brow twitched in exasperation. "I can't believe you're playing Half-Life 3. Anderson chaffed at the flippancy of her mate. "You know, years from now I would like to look back on this day and tell people I saw history being born. Not sitting in a waiting room playing games. Better than being stuck in a waiting room fussing over which room you get to sit in. Besides, it's nothing we can control, so don't worry about it." The pregnant earth pony shook her green herd mate with frustration, nearly knocking the headset off of her. "But this is history." Loki's luck ran out and she lost the gnome during a jump. "Damn it all. Now I gotta go all the way back." Crimson let go of her insufferable mate and sulked in her chair. "My sincere condolences." Loki pulled her headset off and looked at her brooding companion. Look girl, we're already herd mates to probably the only alicorn Earth will ever see. We're already historic figures. I think just being aunts to the first ponies born on Earth is enough, don't you think? The pale yellow mare slumped as she thought about it for a minute. I guess you're right. I really just want to know what to expect in 19 weeks. You really don't want to know. Sure, you get a bundle of joy for your effort, but giving birth is a nasty sweaty process, and I do not want a kid badly enough to go through that. Plus they're really ugly for like, a month or two. A predatory gleam flashed in Crimson's eye. You're scared of the act of giving birth, aren't you? Of course not, the green mare said a little too quickly. Crimson had her now. All I hear are lies and misinformation. She got up to lean in the green mare's ear with a spooky mocking tone. Just the thought of it scares you. Loki grimaced. I wouldn't mind having a foal. But we're going to have 3 of them to take care of soon enough, and adding 1 more will be overkill. Anderson had a smug expression on her face. It's like one of those alien movies to you, isn't it? An ugly xenomorph starts growing inside you, feeding off of you as it gets bigger and bigger. Loki was sweating at the mental image. Then almost 10 months later they burst out of you wailing, crying, and covered in blood. That's enough mind rape, thank you. Anderson wasn't finished yet. And they're insidious to boot. The pale yellow mare pulled Loki's face over to her bulging belly while rubbing lovingly on it. They pull on your heartstrings with those cute little faces and mind powers that enslave the parents into showering it with love. Until one day they're strong enough to leave you behind while still sucking you dry for college money. Assuming there will still be colleges the way the world's going, Loki cracked with grim humor. Before Crimson could become morose, Dr. Wilder exited the maternity ward. Crimson, Loki? You may enter now. Both mares dropped their taunting and raced inside to find Alexia and Conrad. They found the new parents in the center of the room. The silver alicorn was no longer panting from the effort, but was still physically weakened, and Conrad was propping himself up on the reclining bed Toon was resting on so he could look upon his twin daughters with pride. Alexia was beaming a brilliant smile and shifted positions so she could show off her foals to the 2 arriving mares. Both were wrapped in pink blankets and the Pegasus filly was named first. May I present my firstborn, by a matter of 15 minutes, Aurora Sky. She turned her gaze to the newborn unicorn filly. And Violet Spark. Aurora Sky had alabaster fur with her mother's azure mane, but it was in 4 different shades. Her mane was mostly azure, but the other 3 shades of blue formed down the left side of her mane as if mirroring her mother's alpha colors. The only reason Alexia didn't think this was a strange side effect of borrowing her mate's colors was that Aurora's tail also possessed the 4 shades, whereas the alicorn's tail did not. Violet Spark's fur was unsurprisingly, a rich violet, but her mane carried a similarly strange coloration like her sister. Spark's mane was somewhere between a dark pink and a light purple, and it had streaks of pure white that was rimmed by a thin layer of pale blue which gave the illusion that her mane had arcs of electricity running through it. The illusion was foiled with the filly's mane and tail lying still and concealed by the blanket, but if the wind was blowing through it, the optical illusion would return. The tired and exuberant silver alicorn was far too wrapped up in a mother's love to think the colorations of her daughters anything unusual and felt only immense pride and joy for them. Conrad was equally enamored by Violet and Aurora and he gently rubbed Sky with a fetlock. I can't wait until she's old enough to fly. His heart swelled with pride as the little filly feebly attempted to ensnare his hoof with her 4 legs. The herd cooed over the newborn foals for 2 hours until Wilder returned to stand between Loki and Conrad. I'm very sorry, but we should begin vaccinations and other health tests before too much longer. What if they get hungry before you're done? Toon inquired with a trace of worry. Fear not. I'll get the most important ones out of the way first so I can return your fillies if that happens. I'm sure you already know that we currently can't synthesize proper baby formula as of yet. So to that end, would you mind donating a few pints so I can send them down to the labs so we can discover the needed nutrients to begin making formula? Toon didn't need a single second to think. I'd be honored to. I've been following the diet plan in one of the books Twilight made available, so my milk should be on par with what any foal should need. The new mother reluctantly allowed the former veterinarian, whose official title was now doctor after the latest legislature that the president passed into law, to take the foals into the other part of the maternity ward. Glad to hear it. If all goes well, all three of you should be out of here by Sunday. Conrad wanted to follow after Wilder, but knew his daughters were in good hands. Please take good care of them. Wilder gave a reassuring grin at the joyful herd. Don't worry, they'll be just fine. Asterisk. The 18th day of February marked the day Alexia's herd moved into their permanent home. It was a two-story house designed specifically for ponies. The overall height of the ceiling remained the same so human guests could stand comfortably, but the door handles, tables, counters, sinks, and everything else had been lowered to shoulder height of the average mare, and the doors were wide enough that a Pegasus stallion could easily fly through. It had one master bedroom and 4 guest rooms, with one being the foal's room. The kitchen, dining room, living room, and den occupied the first floor, with the living quarters on the second, and a playroom was situated above the 2-car garage. The herd rolled up in the neon blue Volt to find the work crew of 29 ponies and 5 humans who had lent their expertise to the project. An additional 300 ponies who had donated funds for the project stood or hovered in attendance as the royal herd arrived. All of them cheered by either clapping or stomping on the ground as Mayor East stood by the front door with a pair of giant scissors suspended in her telekinesis. A bright red ribbon was wrapped around the 2 Roman columns in front of the windowed double doors. The black unicorn kept a professionally warm smile, but couldn't help but let a little more friendliness slip in at the approach of her friends. Princess Alexia, she began loudly through a microphone so the cheering would die down for her speech. The good citizens of Trinity are a proud people, and they have good reason to be. This fair town is not even half a year old, and it has already proven both to its citizens, and to the world at large, that we ponies have much to offer the world. By harnessing the innate power of all 3 tribes, Trinity is quickly becoming the hub of a brand new industry, magic. Even now, our small but highly productive farmlands to the east will soon start producing enough food to where we can start exporting. But magically grown plants need an exorbitant amount of water. And we have none other than the 2 masterminds behind our burgeoning weather control service than Conrad LeMay and Gil Highwind. A brief round of applause resounded for the 2 Pegasus stallions who waved at their weather crews. A few of the more rowdy Pegasi patted their work bosses heavily on the back. East let the cheering die down again. And let us not forget everyone's work at Brad and Marcy's Enchantment Company for their exceptional merger of technological and magical innovation. The mayor stopped when she saw Alexia quietly gesture that she wanted to add something. And without further ado, Princess Alexia. The silver alicorn took the microphone from Julie and stood in front of the ribbon to face the audience. Both Aurora Sky and Violet Spark sat on her back, both because their mother wanted them close and because the twins were a symbol of the pony's future on Earth. The princess didn't feel the need to go out of her way to present her children as such, but felt their mere presence was sufficient. The unicorn filly was sitting on Toon's withers as she gnawed on her mother's mane. Aurora was nestled between Alexia's wings and was sleeping soundly despite the noise. The princess took a moment to try and meet all of her subjects' eyes. Much to her initial resistance, East's role as mayor was becoming more of an advisory and stand-in position, and it was Alexia who was holding more and more political power within Trinity every day. The black unicorn was in full support of Toon being more than just a figurehead, even if the princess's power meant little outside of town. Our good mayor brings up a good point about the BMEC. She dearly wished she had one of their products on hand, but had to continue without the visual aid. Magic and technology combined into a single machine. I love it every time I hear about it, because that is what we are all striving for, isn't it? Magic and technology, ponies and humans, both united in a better synergy. History has shown us from both Earth and from Equestria, that both of our species can stand alone. But together, we do more than just stand. We thrive. We are more than the sum of our parts, and our actions in these past few months more than proves that humans and ponies can and will stand united. She looked to the 36 humans who joined the crowd. Wilder and some of Thompson's men from the nearby training grounds were in the mix. I am both happy and proud of everyone who has made Trinity the success that it is. She paused to gesture at the house behind her. Trinity is like this wonderful house. I didn't build it. She faced the crowd while focusing on the work crew. This was not my doing, or that of any one being, but of us all. That is why I know we cannot possibly call ourselves a pony society, nor can we call it human society either. Because our town hasn't become what it is without the help and support of every citizen. So with all of you as witnesses to history, she said with her wings flaring to encompass the entire crowd, that I can honestly declare Trinity as the first true Terran community. The renewed cheering of both species was deafening and redoubled as Toon cut the ribbon. It was loud enough to wake the sleeping Aurora Sky, who started crying at the noise. Alexia took the little Pegasus in her magic and levitated her over so she could see her soothing mother's face. Toon weaved a sound-damping field around the crying foal, who calmed at the lack of noise and latched onto her mother's muzzle. Aurora's magenta eyes locked upon Alexia's azure ones, causing the filly to giggle at the close proximity. The silver alicorn was not above public displays of affection to her daughters and herd mates, but did have to reposition Sky so the princess could see more than the smiling alabaster filly's face, and to get the repugnant stench off her snout. Come along, little one, let's get that diaper off you. Conrad was nearby and took the filly into wings before placing her on his back. Let me take care of that. I'm sure the public will want to see you for a little longer. Thanks, honey. Sky fluttered her wings as she clung to her father's back. Alexia released the sonic dampening field as soon as the door was shut behind Conrad. The ribbon-cutting ceremony would last for a few more hours until the herd was left alone to settle in. As usual, the 4 adults claimed the master bedroom as their sleeping quarters. Thankfully, the king-sized bed was more than enough to accommodate them. The family settled into the evening around the living, where a wood-burning fireplace crackled as the ponies enjoyed themselves. Crimson was continuing her medical studies, Loki was snatching funds out of an Italian politician's bank account, while Conrad was half watching a football game on low volume and going over the latest work reports on the weather teams pulling water from the Pacific Ocean. Alexia was reading about conjuration magic while nursing her daughters. Anderson's concentration was broken by her foal kicking. Have a hoof kicking her was much more noticeable than a hand or foot, and she winced at the impact. If my kid's old enough to kick me, then I bet I can find out what it is. She left her books open and walked over to the silver alicorn, who had 1 alabaster and 1 violet leech sucking on their mother. Hey Alex, can I ask a favor of you? Toon put the book down while answering. Of course, what do you need? Anderson was glad Alexia's chair kept them eye level so she wouldn't need to kneel down. My foal is kicking. Do you think you can see what tribe and gender it is? Loki and Conrad's ears perked up at the question, and both of them eagerly walked over to hear the results. Alexia beamed a smile. That's hardly a favor, but I'll be glad to check it for you. The green and brown ponies started gently stroking the 2 fillies as the princess laid a hoof on the pale yellow mare and used her inner sight to find the answer. A few moments later, and Toon's smile threatened to split her face. You're having an earth colt. Anderson's jaw dropped. A son? I'm having a son. Conrad glomped the earth pony with a maniacal laugh. Yes. I have a son. Crimson irked under his bear hug. Thank you, alarm clock disease. Anderson rolled her eyes. So glad my lapse in mental stability makes you happy. He kissed her to show he meant no insult. She melted into the affection and wrapped her forelegs around him. No offense to you mares and fillies, he said after breaking contact, but I'm a lone island in an estrogen ocean here. The house needs more testosterone. Loki nibbled tauntingly on the stallion's ear. Are you trying to say you're not man enough to handle all of us? All I want is a diversion when my daughters get old enough to try and force a makeover on me, he answered quickly to dissuade any playful retribution later. Crimson and Loki shared a conspiratory glance at each other before the pale yellow mare spoke. Why wait for your daughters to do it? Your hair has been getting rather long as of late. Don't you think, Loki? The green mare grinned savagely. No doubt. Let's try our hooves at styling it. Conrad shook his head once. Nope. He took to the air and buzzed out of the front door. Both earth mares chased after him. You're only making it worse on yourself. If you fly out of grabbing range, I'll pound you. End of part 1.